Good day, viewers. Welcome to Balanced, where we focus on the importance of balancing our body, mind, spirit, and community. I'm John, and today my guests are Pastor Ken Blyth and Dale Thompson. Welcome to Balanced. Well, good afternoon, viewers. Thanks again for tuning in to our Balanced episodes. We are here for our final episode of Holiday Balance. And so for the last 3 weeks, we've talked about balance in our bodies, in our mind, and our spirit. So today we have two guests to help us talk about balance in our community. And we've got two guests today, which is really awesome for us to be able to have more people in the conversation. I want to introduce Pastor Ken Blyth from St. Armand's Key Lutheran, blessing us with his presence today. As we're recording this, by the way, viewers, this is December 17th. So we've already passed Christmas by the time you watch this, but he's got all kinds of stuff in his face these days, right?
Absolutely.
Thanks for taking the time to do this. Our second guest is Dale Thompson, who does quite a bit of work in therapy and serving different customers and businesses in our area. So Dale, thanks for contributing to this conversation. You're going to have a lot to add. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. It's great to be here.
Viewers, we're going to do our best to help us think about mantras and hopes that we have for helping community stay balanced, stay unified as we go into 2021. Dale, I want to get the first question posed to you. As you think about community and keeping good unity in that, what are you helping clients to think about and helping people you're engaging to think about for 2021?
Well, a couple things. First of all, COVID's amplified any vulnerability that an individual has, and that's opened so many new opportunities to really heal and grow and change things that have been dysfunctional or unhealthy for a long time. So going into the new year, what a great opportunity to kind of think about that as a real challenge and growth experience versus a wounding or something that's blocking us. We know through COVID that we took a lot for granted. And now with all those things sort of restricted, it's a reminder of us where we can really get back to the basics about what is a healthy family, what is healthy neighborhood, what is healthy community, and how we can really work together to be good with those fundamentals first before we get too stretched apart from really what makes it healthy overall.
Yeah, and I appreciate what you just said to remind us when we say community, what we're talking about. It could be a small unit of the family. It could be your neighborhood, your business, all of those things. So yeah, we're thinking small and big when we think about that community. So thinking about those opportunities. Pastor Ken, in the church world, it's been a different, just totally unlike any other year, right?
Absolutely. Well, a year long, unlike any other I've experienced. But the wonderful thing is that we're all in the same storm. We're not all in the same boat. Our life experiences, our life situations, some of the challenges we face means that we can't say we're in the same boat, but our boats are in the same storm.
So in talking with other pastors, by the way, it seems like you can only think out so far right now. It feels that way. Some of them feel like I can only get through the next couple of weeks. But for good work here to think about 2021, as you do that with your leaders there and within your denomination, what are you hearing as sort of the hope kind of things that people are looking forward to in 2021?
I mean, obviously, one of the principal hopes is to get back to what is normal. Even though some of us believe that normal is only a setting on the washing machine, but to get back to something more familiar.
Yeah.
One of the standard jokes I've heard recently is we keep hearing we live in unprecedented times, and I yearn for precedented times. just for something that's happened before and a place we've been before. So there's that hope that we might return to that semblance of normality. but I think we won't return to things exactly as they were. Um, we now in the faith community have such an online presence that some congregations, some faith communities had before, but many of us didn't. Or if we did, it was fairly low key, low tech, almost tokenism, just to say we had it.
Yeah.
And now, looking at my congregation, the congregation of beloved colleagues, congregations across our synod, our diocese, we see all sorts of people now engaging in online education, online counseling, online Bible study, online worship, online prayer. And that's a switch we won't just switch off,
Right.
won't just flick off. So the mantra around here is not a particularly sexy mantra, but hybrid. Everything is going to have that sort of bifurcated approach, that hybrid approach of returning more and more to in person, but also acknowledging that there's some people that by distance, by illness, by circumstance, or by choice will prefer to join us online. And how do we minister? How do we form community?
Yeah.
When it's online as well as in person, when in person has been our go-to for 2,000 years.
Yeah, Dale, when I hear Pastor Ken talk about this hybrid, which we hear that in education lanes as well, I can't figure that out. And I don't even know that I want to. How do you help people who are in that kind of space?
Well, it's interesting because folks will say that, but if it's a forced adaptation that they like, they don't necessarily fight it. So a good example is we used to all think, oh, social media is going to ruin the world. There's too much going on the internet. And yet it's one of the saving graces of what's happened in COVID, as Ken was saying, in this new hybrid / adaptability space. We find the optimization of both, and doesn't it not expand our ability to connect with people and to provide community in so many new ways, as well as the option of hopping between the two?
As you personally think about your community, your family, your work environment, what is it you hope to see to continue improving the community health and balance in the next year?
Well, so, from my perspective, one of the things that I think has happened with COVID, forcing people to look at some of the problems they're having, is it has forced them also then to reduce some stigmas of asking for help and some stigmas of reaching out for help. And if you segue back to our point before, now we have a lot more vehicles for people to plug in for help,
right,
and to quickly resolve issues that maybe would be sitting, for languishing for a long time, that would lead to dynamics over a marriage, for example, that weren't never be addressed, so they wouldn't optimize who they are in their relationship and their marriage, or folks getting help consulting in a business environment or other training education environments that would sort of shift the axis just enough where, hey, it's okay, we're all kind of in this together, on the same ocean with different boats, but look, we can get this and move everybody in the right direction.
All sorts of plans, both congregationally, denominationally, and even just the work I do through the Sarasota Ministerial Association. We see people finding that balance that they've either selected themselves or have chosen from the least worst option. As we go into 2021, the least worst option will drop away, and people will be able to actually make a genuine choice that's not forced on them by circumstance, but they can say, how out of this smorgasbord of opportunities, what would I like to now freely choose? And how can I adapt that to my situation? I think that's going to be a wonderful sort of healthy development.
Dale, do you have any closing thoughts here that we haven't touched on yet that you wanted to make sure we heard about?
Just overall, just how can we not look at 2021 without really a hope of promise of joy and so many new things? We don't know. One thing about COVID is just what the next day, the next year is going to bring us. Surely nobody going into 2020 thought we'd have this global pandemic and a crisis that would catastrophically impact us as families, communities, as well as a nation. So our ability to see the positive coming into 2021 is almost hedged a bit in the great ways. But I'll encourage everybody to take a minute and just think about the beauty of what we have in front of us, even with COVID. If it's a rose by the side of the road that you can smell the aroma of, and just remember the blessings that we do have, a warm cooked meal in a crock pot, some family time around the fire, or a bike ride with the kids. Those are the things that provide genuine life, not all this other stuff that maybe we could do without.
That's a good word. It's a good word. Pastor Ken, as Dale was talking, I'm just curious. I didn't ask you to think about this ahead of time, so I'm putting you on the spot here. But do you think there's any scriptural mantra that would help us? I'm sure there's plenty, but what comes to your mind as maybe a scriptural mantra for us as we go into this new year?
The one that I've been focused on, and I'm going to carry into 2021, is that call for the church, and the church not meaning the institutionalized church, but the church meaning that community of believers.
Yeah.
The call for the church to weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who rejoice. And I think that's a balance to be struck. It always has been, and it is now, as it ever was, and ever thus shall be. Because the reality is there are people who've been hurt by COVID. There are people who've lost loved ones.
Yeah.
There are people who have seen their world shrink in very unhealthy ways. There are people who are now in debt that weren't in debt before. And that list could go on and on.
Yeah.
And we could add faces and names to that list. And I think we do them a disservice if we only focus on the positives, going back to the image you brought up on the screen earlier from Forbes. And yet, we could do damage to ourselves deeply if that was all we focused on. Because I know that when our kids came back from college, my wife and I went for more walks with those kids, watched more movies, engaged in more conversations. I don't know what our kids thought about it, but we loved it. We're afraid to ask them what they thought, but we loved it. And those positives could be described for the next half hour, and we can all add faces and names to those positives. So to find that balance, and as the church, we respect and acknowledge, we hold up that balance, I think, most wonderfully and most awesomely and most faithfully when we weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who rejoice.
Yeah. Just be present. If it's weeping, be present. If it's happiness, be present.
Yeah.
Really good.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you guys for taking this time again to help us. Listeners, you've gotten a lot from this conversation. I hope you have. And we wish you well as you go into 2021. As you're watching this today, it's December 30th. So Happy New Year to you and your family and all the different levels of community that you have been blessed with. We wish you well. Thanks for tuning in today, and we'll see you next week as we start a new series at noon on next Wednesday. Have a good afternoon.